Welcome to your Cyber Tips Explainer, where we make everyday people understand the cyber world around us. Today, we're digging into one of the biggest, most unbelievable thefts in modern history. And look, this wasn't some Hollywood bank robbery with masks and getaway cars. Nope. This was a silent, digital heist that happened right under our noses, siphoning away billions of dollars from the very systems meant to be a lifeline for people in crisis. This is the story of the Great Unemployment Heist.
Okay, let's just start with a number that's, well, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. $11 billion. To put that into perspective, that's more than the entire economy of dozens of countries. And get this, that's not the total stolen across the entire US. Oh no, that's just the estimated fraud from one single state, California, in just 1 year, 2020. This wasn't a couple of clever hackers finding a loophole. This was an international, organized tidal wave of fraud that just completely steamrolled systems that were never, ever built to handle an attack this big. We're talking about 10% of every single dollar paid out. Just gone. This wasn't a leak. It was a gusher. In this quote from Blake Hall, the CEO of ID.me, a company right on the front lines of this fight, it just captures the scale of this war perfectly. He called it the D-Day of fraud. I mean, just think about that imagery for a second. This wasn't random crime. It was a coordinated, all-out assault by international crime syndicates, hostile nations, and frankly, just opportunistic scammers, all targeting the American taxpayer. They were storming the beaches of our digital world, and for a long, painful time, they were winning. So how in the world did this happen? And maybe more importantly, what can we do to fight back? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll investigate the billion-dollar heist and the perfect storm that made it all possible. Then, we're going to flip through the scammer's playbook to see their shocking tactics. After that, we'll meet the digital detectives and the new tech they're using. We'll also take an honest look at the flaws on this new frontline because, hey, no solution is perfect. And finally, the most important part, we'll arm you with your cyber defense, real steps you can take today. All right, let's start by setting the scene of the crime. The COVID-19 pandemic created this totally unprecedented crisis. Millions of Americans lost their jobs almost overnight, and the pressure on state governments to get money out the door was just immense. It had to be immediate. And in that desperate rush to help people survive, security checks, the very things designed to stop fraud, were loosened up or even bypassed on purpose. The mission was speed. But in opening up the floodgates to help people in need, they also created the single greatest opportunity for criminals in a generation. So this slide gives us a really fascinating look at all the different ways they attacked. See, this wasn't one single event. It was a multi-front assault that exploited all these different weaknesses. You had at least $100 million paid out to people who were literally in prison at the time. How? The state systems weren't cross-checking unemployment claims against prison records. It's that simple. Then you see a mind-boggling $3.5 billion paid to people filing in multiple states at the same time. There was actually a federal data hub to prevent this, but get this, using it was voluntary. It was a catastrophic failure of communication, and criminals just waltzed right through that open door, adding to California's breathtaking $11 billion loss.
Okay, so this is the absolute crux of the problem, the fundamental flaw that made all this possible. It all comes down to two words: static data. This is all the stuff about you that never changes: your name, your birthday, your address, and of course, the crown jewel, your social security number. For decades, this is how government systems proved you were you. But here's the terrifying reality. After years and years of massive data breaches, Equifax, Target, you name it, this information is just not private anymore. As one expert put it, the toothpaste is basically out of the tube. Your static data is for sale, and it's cheap on the dark web. The bad guys have it, which means using it as a security key is like locking your front door with a key that literally everyone on your street already has a copy of.
So, we know the system's weakness, but seeing how criminals actually use it, well, that's another story entirely. Let's open up the scammer's playbook. This isn't just about code and data breaches. This is about human psychology, clever tricks, and sometimes, just plain bizarre disguises. And you have to wonder, right? With all our data already out there, how do they actually turn that into cold, hard cash? I mean, they might have your social security number, but how do they convince a system or even a real person that they are you? Well, it turns out their methods are as creative as they are criminal. A huge part of their playbook is what's called social engineering, basically tricking people into giving up their info willingly. And they're smart about it. They tailor their attacks. For younger folks, a common tactic is the fake work-from-home job scam.
They'll post a really attractive remote job, walk you through a fake interview, and then send you hiring paperwork to fill out with your social security number and all your details. Then, poof, they vanish. You think you just got ghosted by a potential job. In reality, your identity was just harvested. For the elderly, the approach is often more emotional, like romance or prize scams. They build a relationship, build trust or excitement, and then they exploit that connection to get the personal data they need. And this is where we see just how brazen these criminals are. As states started to get smarter and use tougher security, like live video calls to verify who you are, the fraudsters didn't just give up. No way. They adapted. There are multiple documented cases of people showing up to a live video verification call wearing a disguise. I'm talking a literal Halloween mask, trying to pass themselves off as someone else using a stolen ID. It sounds like something out of a bad movie, but it's a real tactic they used. It just shows you how far they were willing to go. And when these new defenses started to work, the organized criminal underground fought back, and they fought back hard. They set up these dedicated secret channels on the messaging app Telegram just to buy and sell bypass methods, basically how-to guides for beating the new security. When that wasn't enough, crime rings, especially out of Nigeria, launched massive cyber attacks called DDoS attacks. The goal was simple: flood the verification services with so much junk traffic that they would just crash and go offline for real users. They even recruited mules, convincing people to file fake claims for a cut of the cash, and coach them to just play dumb and say their identity was stolen if they ever got caught. This massive, coordinated assault demanded a totally new kind of defense. And that brings us to the digital detectives and the technologies they're using to finally turn the tide. The old way of doing things, just relying on that static data, was clearly catastrophically broken. It was time for a complete philosophical shift in how we prove who we are online. Okay, this is so important. This is the core idea of the entire new security model. The new philosophy moves away from just verifying something you know, like a password or your social security number, things that can be stolen. Instead, it moves toward verifying something you have and something you are. Something you have is a physical thing in your pocket, like your smartphone. Something you are is a unique part of you, like your face. By linking a specific face to a specific phone, you create a much, much stronger form of identity that some criminal with a stolen database halfway across the world simply can't fake. So how does this actually work in the real world? For you, the user, it's a two-step process. Step 1 is the automated scan. The system will ask you to use your smartphone to take a picture of your driver's license, and then you take a quick selfie. The AI confirms the ID is real and that the face in the selfie matches the face on the ID. For about 90% of legit users, this whole thing is over in minutes. But what about the other 10%? Or if something looks fishy? That brings us to step 2, a live video chat with a trained human agent who can ask questions and visually confirm you are who you say you are. This is the crucial human backstop that stops that guy in the Halloween mask dead in his tracks. Now, let's peek behind the curtain at the tech that's keeping your data safe once you're verified. The top services are built to meet the U.S. government's gold standard for digital identity, a set of guidelines called NIST 800-63-3. They also use a really critical technology called tokenization. This means that once you're verified, your actual personal data, your social security number, isn't just sitting there. It's replaced with a secure, one-time use digital token. So even if a hacker broke in, they wouldn't find a treasure chest of personal info, they'd just find a pile of useless expired tokens. It's all part of a defense-in-depth strategy, kind of like having multiple locked doors to protect your information. But here's the thing. Building a higher, stronger wall to keep the bad guys out can sometimes, accidentally, lock the good guys out too. No system is perfect, and it is so important to understand that this new frontline in the war on fraud has its own set of problems and really serious, legitimate criticisms that we need to talk about. For a lot of real people, trying to use these new systems has been a total nightmare. There are tons of reports of system glitches just rejecting perfectly valid IDs for no clear reason. For those who get flagged for that manual video call, the wait times have sometimes stretched for weeks, even months, delaying aids they desperately need. This also puts a harsh spotlight on the digital divide. I mean, what about people who don't have a modern smartphone with a good camera or don't have reliable internet? And then you have the credit invisible, people often from lower income and minority communities who might not have the credit history that some systems use to verify you. These new security measures, while necessary, risk creating huge barriers for our most vulnerable citizens. And this quote, it just captures the heart of the dilemma. It describes the cruel catch-22 of being poor with no ID. Millions of Americans don't have a government-issued photo ID. To get government help, they need to prove who they are.
But to get the documents they need to prove who they are, they often need time and money they just don't have. So the very technology that's meant to secure our systems creates this massive societal challenge. How do we protect taxpayer money from crooks without cutting off the very people who need that money the most?
Okay, we've talked a lot about this massive systemic problem, but now let's pivot to what you can do personally. It's really easy to feel powerless against these huge criminal operations, but that's just not the case. There are concrete, powerful steps you can take to build your own cyber defense and protect your identity. Let's get into it. You know what they say? The best defense is a good offense. And this strategy is called planting the flag. The logic is really simple. Criminals already have your stolen data. They're just waiting to use it. Planting the flag means you go to the important websites yourself, the IRS, the Social Security Administration, and yes, identity services like ID.me. And you create your own legitimate account first. You are proactively claiming your digital territory. That way, when a criminal finally comes along with your stolen data and tries to create an account in your name, the system goes, sorry, this person already exists. You've locked them out before they could even get their foot in the door. Seriously, if you only do one thing after watching this explainer, please let it be this. Freeze your credit. It is, without a doubt, the single most powerful tool you have to prevent identity theft. A credit freeze basically locks down your credit file. It stops anyone from opening a new credit card, getting a car loan, or opening any new line of credit in your name. All you have to do is contact the 3 major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and request a freeze. It is completely free by law. If a thief tries to use your identity, they'll be blocked. And when you need to apply for credit yourself, you can just temporarily thaw it with a PIN. It's simple, it's free, and it's incredibly powerful. And finally, let's upgrade your two-factor authentication, or 2FA. A lot of us use it, which is awesome, but we often get that security code sent as a text message. And that's actually one of the less secure ways to do it. It's vulnerable to a crime called SIM swapping, where a hacker tricks your cell phone company into moving your phone number to a SIM card they control. Once they do that, they get your texts, including your 2FA codes. A much more secure method is to use an authenticator app, like Google Authenticator or Authy. These apps generate the code directly on your phone. It's never sent over a network, making it nearly impossible for a hacker to grab. Go into your security settings and make the switch. So, we'll leave you with this question to think about. After seeing how sophisticated, how organized, and just how widespread these attacks are, is your identity truly as secure as you think it is? The war against fraud is a constantly evolving battle, and while new technologies are creating stronger defenses for the system, the ultimate guardian of your personal identity has to be you. Subscribe to this channel, like and share this video with someone you deeply care about to have a foolproof cyber defense.